All right, excellent afternoon to all those who are watching me across the states in Nigeria. They said the power of our currency is in the way we handle it and we spend it. And of course, the level of respect that we attach to it is quite important. And the problem of Naira value today is affected by those who who have owned it, I don't know the word to use now, or steal it, or those who have, mismanaged it, and using this capacity and this, their various offices, in terms of where they've met themselves and handling our currency. Again, I say welcome to another interesting episode of Real Talk with Kike. I remain your convener, Kike Lomatondawa. And of course, I think it's important for us to quickly get a message from my sponsors. Or will I say on this day industry first, and after that we listen to a message from my sponsor. Stay with me, I'll be right back. This is Real Talk with Kike. All right, many thanks for staying with me. I believe the On This Day Industry segment regarding Sadio Mane of Senegal has had its own shine, if you ask me. Now is the time for Super Eagles to win the AFCON Cup and for us to actually, show them a lot of love and what we stand for as the greatest nation in Africa or country in Africa. And our loss at the Grammys can be compensated, if you ask me, with all that is going on right now. But I guess today's On This Industry segment is a little bit of positivity, even though we lost at the Grammys. So I think it's time for us to get a quick message from my sponsors. When I return, the main conversation will kick in. Stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with me. The free fall of the Naira, which last week became a tropical issue as the official foreign exchange rate, fell below the parallel market of FX rates, further shook a lot of public confidence as businesses and investors continue to find it difficult to predict the Naira exchange rates, especially in Nigeria. However, during the week, the Naira fell to about 1,482 Naira to a dollar on the official rate and around $1,500 on the parallel market rates, which, has necessitated a rift of measures introduced by the Central Bank of Nigeria, the CBN, to calm the markets, and the economic and monetary policies, directives of the CBN in recent times have been met with indecisive reactions, if you ask me, from the office of the market and, of course, the economic agents. And my guest today is a specialist in financial advisory, structured finance, transactions, and private equity. He is a policy commentator that can drive the discussion on the ongoing issue or transitions and the actions of the CBN with regards to the rescuing of the country from the waves of economic and financial turmoil. But before we delve further, before I bring in my guest, I think it's important for us to check his profile out. And you agree with me that he's the right person to, provide solution to most of the challenges that we're going through right now. Stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, welcome to the show, Mr. Tilewa Adebajo. It's a pleasure to have you on the lunch show today. You know, we've been meeting at different occasions. But it's good that you've been dragged here. But many thanks for creating time to, you know, lend your voice on economic issues, financial issues that affect us, that will actually help the growth of this country moving forward. But let me just go straight to how are you doing today, sir? Let me start from there.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. He said it's fine, guys, as well. All right, sir. So let's just go straight to the topic at hand, because as far as I'm concerned, Nigerians want to know. You know, millions of people are concerned with the different policies that is being put out there, especially when it comes to the news that is ongoing with the financial economy. So Nigerians are curious. They want to know the simple question: does the CBN know what they're doing? Is the first question that I think that Nigerians want to know right now. When I say know what they're doing, can they actually rely on the fact that they will be doing the right thing in reviving the economy of this country, Nigeria?
Good afternoon.
Excellent afternoon
and
to you.
Thank you for having me on your program.
Many thanks for coming.
It's been a while, yes,
Yeah.
but I'm here. I was summoned and
Yeah.
I've responded.
Many thanks.
Yes,
Many thanks.
okay. I think it's important for us to state very clearly that the current management of the Central Bank of Nigeria, given the interview that the governor gave not too long ago, they know exactly what they're doing. And I think by the time we begin to break down the governor's speech and what he said, we can begin to understand the challenges he's facing and how he has addressed all these challenges. And I think that the new management of the central bank, they are all tried and tested. And I think both the governor and the deputy governors, I think we should give them a chance and let them perform. From what the governor said on his interview, which was aired on Monday, I think it was clear what those challenges were. And there's been a lot of misinformation on social media, mainstream media about the foreign exchange situation, and I think that clarification was made. So let me assert that we do have confidence in the central bank governor and the deputy governors. And to answer your question directly, yes, they do know what they're doing. They're articulating the changes, and I think that we should give them time to do it. So I need to say this so that I'm not acting like I'm a spokesperson. I also should add that I'm not a spokesperson of the central bank. So, but at least from what I've heard, I think that things are in the right direction.
All right, many thanks for that insight, right? And of course, clarifying that you are not a spokesperson from the CBN, which you know. But, you know, when you were giving your submission earlier, you were talking about the challenges that they are facing. I want to tweak that challenges to the effectiveness of the CBN reforms, because Mr. Cardoso, in his interview, you know, he emphasized about the reforms, you know, being implemented and, you know, to be stabilized by the Naira. However, I just feel that critics have argued, you know, they've criticized on socials, like you mentioned, that, you know, these reforms, you know, are maybe in terms of floating exchange rates, you know, they've looked at it from the angle of, you know, it has worsened the situation, the economic situation at hand. I do not want to talk about the first subsidy that was removed at the get-go that have also added to the hardship. But the question is, what is your own response to this criticism? Because we now know that the new TV now is on socials. Even before TV, you know, the mainstream start airing all these interviews, social media snippets, you know, everything will be out there and all of that. Are there any data to measure the effectiveness of these reforms thus far? Because I think that we've gotten to a place where we just cannot just be listening to you know, sentimental conversation or communication. We have to back it with data. We have to back it with what are the facts.
Yes, I think you've hit the notes. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head there, without doubt. And you're sounding the right notes. You know, show us the proof. Your reforms, how are they doing and how are they performing?
How effective is it?
How effective is it? I think you've hit the right notes. You've hit the nail on the head. So, again, not to be seen as a spokesperson of the bank, which is just to break down the speech of the governor. And my understanding of it is that when they came, they met a challenge of about $7 billion in the backlog of foreign exchange. So what they did was that they ordered an audit, a forensic audit. So they got Deloitte which is a reputable audit and consulting firm, to do a forensic audit of that backlog to ensure that this backlog is actually genuine. So out of the backlog, they realized that 2.4 billion of that backlog was not genuine. And they wrote to the banks in question to come forward to verify what they had, and they couldn't come forward to justify those applications. So they are not recognizing that. So right now, I think their backlog that is left now is only 2.4 billion. So they say they're going to clear that. So the main problem, which is the FX backlog, I think we have seen some resolution with that. It's only 2.4 billion left from 7 billion. So that's number one. Number two, the central bank governor says they want to go through a market-driven. They want transparency and accountability into that system, and they want one single foreign exchange market. So what we call the parallel market or the black market, they don't want that to operate in isolation. They want one single market. Everybody will operate in the same single market with transparency and accountability. And he did promise that he was going to give us the new guidelines. So this is another thing that is happening. So the foreign exchange market is in transition, and they want to bring everybody under one market. So that is what is going on now. So all those, what you call the IMTOs, international money transfer operators, and all those, the Bureau de Change of all of them, everybody needs to operate in one single market so that we have one rate. And that is the objective. So that is where we're going through this transition. So that is going to be seen. So those are the two things. So that is happening gradually as we speak. Then, of course, we've talked about the challenges we have, which he talked about the role of the central bank. That central bank has spent too much time getting involved in intervention funding. So my own recommendation to them has always been all these intervention funds, the central bank doesn't have the capacity to manage loans. So transfer those loans to the Bank of Industry, Bank of Agriculture, and the Development Bank of Nigeria. They have the capacity to manage loans and to follow up on loan applications so that the central bank can concentrate on its monetary policy activities and banking supervision and reserve management. Right. So that's what they're trying to do right now. Right. So those are the two things they're going to do. Now, in terms of inflation, which is the key problem we have in Nigeria today, which is now close to, is about 30%. And inflation is causing all kinds of problems. What we call the yield curve. A yield curve shows whether you have returns in the market. The yield curve in Nigeria today is negative because inflation is higher than interest rates. So when you have a situation whereby inflation is higher than your interest rates, real rates are negative and real yields are negative. So people cannot save. So that is the challenge we're having in Nigeria, where everybody is looking for naira and prices are going off. To exacerbate this situation, there's also the removal of fuel subsidy. So there is a significant cost push inflation, which is caused by this fuel subsidy removal. And of course, you know what people complain about in Nigeria, prices of food are very high. So food inflation and subsidy removal inflation, which is affecting transportation and logistics, is driving inflation in Nigeria today. So the next challenge for the central bank is how are they going to control inflation and bring inflation down to normal? Because without inflation, we cannot, with inflation at 30%, our economy cannot grow. So that is the next challenge. So they have an MPC meeting at the end of this month. And at that point in time, we'll hope that they will announce their policies as to how they're going to increase interest rates to lower inflation. But he has said openly that by the end of this year, he's targeting 21% inflation, down from 30%. So that is my take from what the governor is doing. So to also answer your question, in terms of the measurements, it's still too early for us to begin to put a measurement on these policies, because these sort of policies take a long time for it to come to play. So let us begin to look at around September, October of this year to be able to see the impact of these policies. We can now begin to say, okay, we've had time to measure. The first quarter of this year will end in very shortly. So at the end of the first quarter of this year, we can now do the assessment. How has the economy grown? How has inflation gone? But if you take a look at the inflation trend, with the tightening they're doing, month on month inflation is actually declining. So that might be a positive sign, but it's at this stage is only green shoots. We'll just have to wait and see.
All right, many thanks for your elaborate submission right there. I wish I can start speaking on your submission, because touching on transportation, touching on security, which I feel that the agriculture that they are trying to pay attention to right now, where agriculture is, security have not been met yet, so it's hard for you to even talk about security. But putting that aside, because you know so many things you said earlier, which I feel that is a collaboration of fiscal authorities, but I will get to that at the moment. But let me first of all ask you, because with all that you've shared thus far, the validity of FX claims, I feel that is something that I need to touch on, because he has revealed that, you know, $2.7 billion have been reported, and of course $7 billion of also with FX claims, you know, were also fraudulent, if you ask me, with all the things that have been able to collate thus far. Woo! Were this, I don't know the word to use, that were these entities, so to speak, because what reactions, what actions have been taken against them, if you ask me, because I feel that I've not been able to get enough answers to all of this. Is there a system in place that we can prevent such occurrences from not happening in future? Is also what I'm bringing to fall, if you'll be able to have an answer for me with my question. However, before you answer that, obviously, with all that you've shared thus far, with the revelation of the CBN governor, there are cartels, so to speak, performing fraud at the CBN. We've seen the likes of the corruption that is going on at the moment, in terms of the culture of the corruption in our country today, that has remained a big problem. I don't know how we want to fight that, but in this country, it is not only former Governor Emefiele, if you ask me, that is how would I put it, capable of all the things that have happened, that they've been throwing fingers at him and all of that, at the crime that has occurred. But is there a way that we can say that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the leader who is in the corridor of power today, can actually look for how to cleanse, if that's the word to use now, or will I say rid, you know, the country of corruption? Because some of the challenges that I see today, especially talking about this financial challenges and the inflation at the moment, I believe that our biggest problem also is corruption. Everybody is thinking about their pockets. What's the need for me? Not what is actually, what the society or the citizen are going to benefit.
You have put in a political spin into this. But it is a political economy, and we cannot run away from these factors that you've highlighted. But let us first close this issue of the foreign exchange you've talked about. I think you have to give credit to the governor that he actually went and did a forensic audit. So, I mean, that is a positive signal. And as you said, now that they've done a forensic audit and they found out that some people applied for foreign exchange with non-entities. In some instances, there were non-entities that applied. So the question is the fact that who is culpable? So I think we need to go the extra step. Since they already know those guys, they say they've written to them and they did not respond. So those people, then we now need to know the punishment. I think that is very important to show that we're sending a strong signal to the market that this is not going to be tolerated going forward. And people that got involved in things like this, I think they should met out the punishment. It will send a strong signal to the market going forward and remove a lot of speculation from the system. So I think that is clear. When you want to talk about corruption in Nigeria, I think if we won't finish that topic this evening, but obviously there's a cost to that. And we have seen the cost of what has happened with the last governor of the central bank, which printed close to 23.7 trillion in illegal ways and means financing. This government has added another 7 trillion. So we now have 30 trillion of illegal ways and means, which is over 30 times the limit. So that is still a challenge that we have to deal with in terms of what the central bank needs to do. But it has to be step by step. When they finish the foreign exchange, let them sort out the monetary policy in terms of inflation targeting. And after that, they need to restructure the central bank balance sheet and address the issue of the reserves. So in terms of the central bank, those are the issues that we're looking at. But in terms of the government, what is important for government now is that government needs to curtail spending. The government the government debt is unsustainable. According to the finance minister, 98% of revenues is going towards debt service. At the end of this year, our debt service profile is going to be higher, and our debt stock will be close to between 130 billion to $150 billion. So it's no longer sustainable. Something has to be done about that. So, you know, whether we like it or not, the issue, we need to resolve the issues. But at least in terms of looking at what the central bank is doing, step by step, I think we can begin to see that things are moving in the right direction.
All right, many thanks for that submission as well. But before we go on a quick bit, let me ask you this, because you've spoken about collaboration earlier, and I feel that there is a need for us to coordinate in terms of coordination between monetary and fiscal policies and all of that. So, and to what extent, you know, as an expert in this field, do you think that one should be collaborating with the Ministry of Finance? Because I feel that this collaboration now, we need to throw a lot of emphasis and transparency on it, on how stakeholders can achieve alignment amongst themselves to push the country forward.
Very important. Even the central bank governor mentioned it about how they are talking to the fiscal authorities, which is the Ministry of Finance. So it's not just the Ministry of Finance. So there are 4 key ministers that will manage the economy. The finance minister, who is also the coordinating minister of the economy, responsible for this coordination. That's fine. Then, of course, the central bank governor, who is handling monetary policy. So monetary policy and fiscal policy alignment is very important. Then you also have the minister of budget and planning. And more importantly, somebody that we don't talk about much is the minister of industry, trade and investments. She also needs to be involved in this fray, because our trade policy and our tariff policy and our industrial policy especially needs updating. Our industrial policy is a big problem because productivity is an issue in Nigeria. So not only does she need to update the industrial policy to maintain current reality, but in terms of our trade and tariff policies, our HS codes, importation codes, we need to also revamp them, because that's also, you know, constraining our trade very, very significantly. So those 4 ministers, in terms of alignment, are going to be very critical for the success of any reform program that they're taking.
All right, many thanks for all your submission thus far. We'll go on a quick break, and when we return, the conversation will continue. Stay with me. I'll be right back. This is Real Talk with Kike. All right, glad to know you're still right there with us. In case you just joined the show, today's conversation is about the CBN policies, you know, both monetary and economic, towards reviving our economy and, of course, sustaining the naira value. And have been with a financial expert, you know, since the beginning of the show, and we have been discussing the critical issues, you know, affecting the forex market and, of course, the entire financial system in Nigeria. And the next part of the show, I will be addressing the link of current challenge with long-term solutions, because, you know, on this platform I try to always bring let's prefer solutions to the issue at hand, the role of, you know, international agencies as well, and our external authorities that are borrowing monies. You know, the borrowing money has become a pattern, if you ask me. Sometimes when I hear the kind of money that they are borrowing, my heart just beats for the next generation. But putting that aside, I want to use this opportunity to open the phone lines. Remember that you can be part of this conversation by calling the studio number 080-988-77400, showing on your screen right now. And we're streaming live on Facebook, both on YouTube both on YouTube with Silverbird platform, and of course with Real Talk with Kike platform. Again, I want to say many thanks, sir, for all your submission thus far. It's been very educating, and I hope that the stakeholders who are watching will actually take most of your submissions and put into play in order to provide solutions to the issue at hand. But moving on, I said earlier that I want to address the issue of the long-term challenges that we have in our hands. I don't like to call it problems, you know, because beyond the immediate reforms that I've heard that the CBN governor have mentioned, and of course the policies, you know, that we keep hearing here and there. So people are even lost. People keep asking me, Kike, what are these policies that they are talking about? But what are the long-term plans to address Nigerians, you know, that are actually, you know, underlining the economic problems, you know, or challenges such as maybe importation, import dependence, you know. I like the fact that you touched on the trade and investment earlier, which is something that we need to throw a lot of light on. Of course, the lack of production as well, and of course unemployment. If you ask me, the unemployment and insecurity in this country is very alarming. And the reason why when they're saying that they need to focus on agriculture, I said to myself, the place where agriculture is supposed to take place needs a lot of security. Have they actually tackled that? Let's start from there, sir, in terms of how we can provide solution.
Well, first of all, I think in understanding the challenges go beyond that. One of the biggest challenges we have in Nigeria is about sustainability of our fiscal regime. Well, I think it was 2008, just after Obasanjo left, he set up an excess crude account. And by the time Yar'Adua was there, 2008, 2009, global financial crisis, our excess crude account was at $18 billion. So we had a buffer of $18 billion at that point in time. Unfortunately, two governors, Fashola and Amechi, went to court trying to get them to share this money instead of creating a sovereign wealth fund, which was initially created, and put the money into this sovereign wealth fund so that we can manage it. If we had set up a sovereign wealth fund at that point in time and put all this money there, we will not have the problem we're having today because we'll have that buffer. Norway is a country of 6 million people and has a sovereign wealth fund of $1.4 trillion. Last year, they made a profit of $215 billion on their sovereign wealth fund. Saudi Arabia also has like 900 billion, Qatar 800 billion, UAE 700, Kuwait, Singapore. All these countries have these sort of things to help them manage the cyclical problems with oil. Saudi Aramco, as you know, is now one of the largest companies in the world, giving trillion dollar revenues and profits. So we haven't made that transition in Nigeria. To make matters worse, our OPEC oil quota is 1.8 million barrels a day. Our productivity has suffered. We are now at 1.3 million barrels a day. So in terms of making the right investments in the oil industry, we're not doing it. In 1977, Nigeria hit 2.5 million barrels of oil for the first time. Today, we're at 1.3. If we had added another 1.2, instead of losing 1.2, we'll be close to 4 million barrels a day. We won't have a foreign exchange problem, and we don't have a sovereign wealth fund. So hence our problem. Then you talked about the issue of mismanagement that has happened in the last 8 years. So most of these problems, I see it as self-inflicted. The security challenge has just exacerbated the situation. And the problem with the security challenge, as you said, is affected the food basket, because most of all this insecurity is happening in the food baskets of Nigeria. And of course, transport and logistics, farmers are not producing optimally. So when you have this decline, then productivity in Nigeria has also declined. And we're having all these challenges. So the economic reforms that need to take place are quite significant. And you know, one of the key was the removal of the subsidy. So we'll now see how that will play out. As you can see now, most of these, the Federation account for the first time is now getting over 1 trillion. So both with the removal of the subsidy and the foreign exchange differential is helping revenue. So significant amount of challenges in Nigeria, but like I've said, there's no quick fix. We need to sit down and put in policies in place, and it will take us between 12 months to 18 months to begin to see results. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint.
Sometimes when I hear about this 12 to 18 months, in my head, I'm like, this administration came as if they were prepared. They know all the problems, all the challenges. Therefore, give them 3 to 6 months, you know, they are going to provide solutions to all the issues that, and rather, when they came in, another thing happened. But putting that aside, I can say that at least they've been, you know, very on top of issues, you know, not that they are running away from them, but there must be an oversight with all the complaints that we've been seeing, and I feel that the concerns of the CBN's oversight, you know, regarding the banks, you know, because the banks cannot be left untouched in this conversation with all that is happening, especially when it comes to forest holdings and all of that. How would you advise, you know, in terms of the strengthening of regulation capacity? With all that you've shared thus far, I feel that regulation capacity and the address to put some certain issues behind us in terms of past lapses in enforcement and how we have mishandled funds and all of that. How do you want us to address it going forward? That's my first question to you, because I'm trying to manage time. And the second one is the fact that beyond the CBN's role, I feel that, you know, analysts have said all sorts on socials, you know, also on a lot of blogs as well, in terms of CBN cannot preferred solution or solve all the problems alone. And I like how you touched earlier on collaboration with other authorities and all of that. What are your own recommendations thus far from other government agencies or businesses when it comes to SMEs, when it comes to the public contribution to the economic recovery? Because I feel that it takes all of us, it takes the village to work together, not just us pointing fingers at the government at the moment.
Thank you very much for those submissions. In terms of the regulation you've talked about, the central bank does need to rein in the banks. There's no doubt about it that the banks have been having a field day, and the publication of their net open positions, I think, is quite disturbing. And the fact that there's been some forward deals which the central bank had gone into swaps with some of these banks, I think is something also that there should be a forensic audit also on those sort of situations, and so that we have clarity and transparency. And I think, as you said, if heads must roll, heads need to roll. And I think that will send a clear signal that we're serious going forward. And having said that, I think what is also important is that when you take a look at the economy as a whole, what needs to happen is that you have to see a holistic approach as to how we're going to resolve this problem. You talked about the whole thing about changing the whole economy as a whole and getting the reforms that are necessary in place. How do you get these reforms in place? Let me tell you something that will surprise you. Government's budget this year is about 8% of Nigeria's GDP of 400 billion.
Yeah.
So government is not a significant player in the Nigerian economy. So it is the private sector and entrepreneurs that will have to drive the reforms. So what government needs to do, government needs to stay out of the way. They need to put out policies in terms of privatization and concessioning, especially in the power sector, so that to open up the economy for productive growth. You can see what the fintechs are doing. They don't need government. They are moving on their own. So government just needs to concentrate on enabling environment and enabling policies, and government should focus on regulation and oversight. So if they go out on concessioning, if they go out on privatization and get out of the way, then you can attract private capital to be able to do what needs to be done. And Nigerians are very enterprising. You can see what has happened now with the social intervention programs. We all agree that at the end of the day that you need social intervention. But look at what has happened with the humanitarian ministry. That does not augur well. Whatever the government is doing, it just rubbishes all those policies that basically you've put a humanitarian ministry in place to cushion the effects of your reforms, and the officials involved are engaged in insider trading, insider dealing, and interministerial deals. The optics are not good, and it just, it puts a sour taste in your mouth that, is this government really serious about alleviating the problems of the masses? Because if you do not focus on the social side of things in terms of alleviating the problems, right now Nigeria is in stagflation.
Absolutely. Okay,
we have 44% unemployment. Youth unemployment is higher, maybe in the 50s. You see, so, and then you have 133 million Nigerians in multidimensional poverty. The only way you're going to get those people out of poverty and working is if you are growing the economy between 8 to 10% on a sustainable basis every year. The humanitarian ministry cannot do everything. It is how when your economy is productive, then the private sector, which consists of 95% of the economy, will now begin to employ people because they are being productive, and then you have a population that has purchasing power. Right now, there's no purchasing power. We are a sachet economy. Everything is sold in sachets because people cannot afford the big prices. There's no purchasing power. So you need to empower people. When they have purchasing power, they go out there, they spend, and they rejuvenate the economy. So we need to understand that government is only 8% of our GDP.
Many thanks for that. Like, God bless you for, throwing light on a lot of things, because I keep telling people that, government just have 8% of the GDP and the rest just falls into different authorities. But with all that you've mentioned in terms of the level of instability that is going on, this will be my last question to you before I move to the last segment of the show. I'm trying to seek the external assistance right now with all that you've shared thus far. I feel that we have become a spectacle of concern with global financial institutions like, IMF, the World Bank, because we keep borrowing every now and then, and it's alarming to me, just like I said earlier. I would like you to throw light on what specific, steps would you advise us to be taking right now to ensure that we take responsibility in terms of our financial management, of potential support from other authorities that can come together to collaborate with us. Maybe after answering that, you can just put a last message out there regarding, your message to Nigerians, because a lot of Nigerians are struggling. Like you all know, there's hardship in town. We keep it real on this platform. That's why it's called Real Talk with Kike. What is your message to address the ordinary Nigerians struggling with the current economic hardship, where I can tell you for free that, some people cannot even afford 1 square meal in a day? Is the truth.
Well, it's very disheartening, and that's why I said that it makes it worse when the ministry that is supposed to be responsible for some alleviation, they're getting involved in things they shouldn't get involved in.
Exactly.
The optics and the reality is bad. Whichever way you look at it, optics or reality is bad. So it just shows that maybe you don't really care about these people you're supposed to deal with, and that needs to be managed. But having said that, I think it's clear that, we have debt limits. We have reached our limits in terms of debt. I would take example of certain countries: Ethiopia, Ghana, and Zambia. They have defaulted on their debt, and they are going through debt restructuring. So Nigeria has to be very careful how we are managing our finances so that we do not end up in that level. The IMF and the World Bank, there's only so much they can give you. And if you do not meet their criteria, they will not lend to you. So no matter how much you think about it, when you reach your limit, they'll tell you they can't give you anything again. So, and we have reached our debt borrowing limits. That's why we're selling our oil forward to borrow, which is not a very good sign. So there's need for fiscal responsibility, fiscal discipline, and the government needs to get into debt restructuring, before they force us into it. So that's something that is very important. So when you ask me what message do I want to leave, I'm a firm believer in the Nigerian economy. The potential of the Nigerian economy, I believe, is already at $1 trillion. It's just that we have mismanaged our economy. At a point in time, our economy was close to $700 billion. So within the last 9 years, we have lost about, $300 billion from our GDP. So if in the last 8 years you added 300 billion to our GDP, we'll already be at 1 trillion. So that is for me, that is the biggest travesty in Nigeria. What we have done to ourselves in this country in the last 8 years, in a country that has so much potential. But because of the economic leadership that has failed Nigerians, our GDP this year will drop to about 390 billion. And we are now going to we are no longer the giant of Africa. So we're now going to be number 3 behind South Africa and Egypt. That is the reality we face. So if we do not turn things around, we do not have much time on our hands. So the success of these reform programs are very, very important. And as you've said, there's a social consequence because people, you can feel it. It's not easy. Even for those of us who have staff, I have to subsidize their transportation. I have to pay 80% of their transportation in order for them to be able to make it to work. So that is what we are facing as employees. It
is because you understand the great work ethics, because most Nigerians, most organizations in Nigeria do not actually really care about their staff.
They can't afford it. That's the reality. It's not as if they don't care about their staff. Believe me, for me, it's a big sacrifice. It's only certain level that you do. It's a big sacrifice. But most people just cannot afford it.
Maybe not. I agree with you. But many thanks for all that you've shared thus far. I pray for God longevity and sparkling of health, so that we continue to lend your voice to issues that affect us all in this country, especially when it comes to the revenue, which I feel that affects all sectors. On this note, I think this is where I go to the last segment of the show that I call the trending stories. These are stories that binds us as Nigerians, that affect us all. And my first trending story today is that of the veteran actor and playwright Pa Jimmy Sholanke, that dies at 81. And let me quickly say this, because first thing first, my deep condolences to the family. You know, a true heritage is gone. Jimmy Sholanke is somebody that I can tell you that he is the master of storyteller, and of course when it comes to him lending his voice, you know, whose voice fills stages and screens for over 5 decades, if I'm allowed to say that, or even 6 decades. You know, my grandmother, I remember then, Alaja, you know, who raised me, you know, always make me watch his content, listen to him, you know, his beautiful performances and all of that. Passing away, you know, will I say legacies, or he has left a lot of legacies behind, which is rich, which is, you know, very vibrant, as the stories that he has shared thus far. And I think that this is where I always like to say that, you know, the youth of today can learn something more positive, because Sholanke's life was woven with trends of, you know, poetry, music, drama, and a deep love for Nigerian heritage, you know, our culture with the world of Gen Z today. You know, I have no issues with them. I just feel that there's so much that they can learn when it comes to our culture, our heritage, and it's a regular thing when it comes to the Nigerian traditional wears. As the reason why you've seen a lot of people who are patriotic to say that, you know, they keep shouting, made in Nigerian products should be pushed more to grow our own economy. Even with what is going on right now, I feel that needs to be pushed forward as well. But I knew him from his days of, will I say, Storyland on NTA, and I can tell you for free that with quite a number of things that is going on right now in terms of him following his graduation at the University of Ibadan, and of course Sholanke also ventured across the Atlantic, planting of the seeds of the African Review as well. You know, a group in which I can tell you that is versatile ground in of Los Angeles. And in the 1986 as well, I remember the call of his homeland that proved, you know, irresistible with most of his works that have returned to Nigeria. And we can see a lot of whites, you know, coming back here. There are 3 members of his group that were also maybe became wealthy, be based on his work and his experiences, and his stage presence that he has also brought also to his perfection when it comes to his name today. If you're talking about him, there's no how you will not touch on that. His talent was quickly recognized, you know, earning him lead roles in the films of Ola Balogun as well, and a place in the theme that I can tell you that brought Wole Soyinka's what's the name of this? I think Congo's Harvest to life of 1965 as well. Many of our so-called, you know, role models like this, rather than us, you know, trying to follow the trends. Again, I don't have issues with it. I'm just trying to say that I'm trying to push forward, you know, treasures that I feel that is outside the country, that quite a number of people even appreciate it more than even what we are thinking of right now. So at this moment, it's time for us, you know, especially the Gen Zs, you know, to come together to say that they want to do the right thing. They want to actually emulate people that will be of added value and bring back our generation, our heritage and all of that. And on this note, I think this is where I can say that, you know, let's keep pushing the right thing. Let's keep pushing the right culture, especially when it comes to our children, our unborn children, who can become role models, you know, beyond what they've read in school and all of that. So I just use this opportunity to actually mourn with the family, mourn with Nigeria as a whole, and pray that we all can come together to celebrate extraordinary lives, and we becoming one as well. Quickly, sir, I don't know if you have a word to say to his loss.
Well, this is a legend, and as we say, he's a goat. So without a doubt, I think it's a sad loss for the cultural scene in Nigeria. These are the purveyors of our culture. They stayed true to their calling, and I think his heritage, has been documented not only in film. He's also had some musical recordings, and, you know, he's made an impact, you know, on the lives of so many of us. And of course, you know, what can I say? may his soul rest in peace, is definitely a goat.
Definitely a goat. I agree with you. That means you yourself, you are keeping tab with all the abbreviations that are out there. I like that. I like that. Many thanks. Let me quickly touch on the last segment of the show. The last second segment of the show, which is on trending, which is about the Nigerians in South Africa that they are saying that we need. They warned us against wild jubilation, so to speak. And when I saw the letter online, I was like, hey, it has come to that. But since the start of the AFCON, we have seen that Nigerians, have been leading. They've been at the center of antagonism, if you ask me, from virtual most of their African counterparts. I know that my guests today have said that, we are no longer the giant of Africa. We are now number 3. South Africa is leading. Guys, that cannot be exaggerated, because we have always been the giants, if you like, whether we are number 2, number 3, but we will remain the giant of Africa. And in every way, if you ask me, when it comes to entertainment, when it comes to music, name it, when it comes to acting, even the popularism, even the population around us in Nigeria today, we have remained the giant. Hence the reason why they're always beefing us here and there. I must keep it on this platform. And I know that, in the last 24 hours, the likes of Tilewa that sang the song Water, that won in Grammys as well, have brought a lot of I'm trying to measure my words properly in terms of controversies and all of that. And Davido, Burna Boy, the likes, losing. So I will not say it's a lose. There are quite a number of people. I wish if they can just, have a better mentality of the fact that if you are nominated, once you are nominated, that's a win for you already. That's how I look at things like that. Because there's a pool of thousands of people who are doing what you are doing, but you have been recognized. That's a win already. But, we know South Africans and their temperament going by the history of, xenophobia in recent years and all of that. So for the safety of Nigerians, let me put it out there that for those Nigerians that are in South Africa, there should not only be jubilation. Yoruba will say that Bisheni Bata Yoman for what Bojeni. I mean Yoruba Bay. Forget my Argentina and the likes extensions. So and for non-Yoruba listeners or who are watching me right now, what that means is the fact that when you come across fortune in life, many disappointments will come. It's best for you to conceal it from those envying you, to ensure that the blessings last with you forever. Anyways, with all that I've shared thus far, I'm very sure of the victory against the the South Africa. Should I hold myself? No, because I don't know if I should bet. Don't worry, my sponsors are already doing the right, and I know that our Eagles will tear them apart in Ivory Coast. I can say that for a free, Mr. Tilewa.
Put 1 million
I
on the
can
table.
say that, okay, it's daring me. I'm going to speak to my sponsors. I will put more than $1 million. So, in fact, I just want to use this opportunity, for those who are watching Super Eagles live in Cote d'Ivoire, for the fathers of the AFCON. Please, let's support our men. Let's support our boys. Go Super Eagles. I'm supporting you. We're yay! Bring back the car. All right. I know this is where I have to draw the curtains of the show. I don't know if you have anything to say to me before I wrap up.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's a very lively program.
Thank you.
And very relaxed and enjoyable.
I told you. I told you guys, should I let out the bag? He was putting me on time clock. Akike, I cannot do this. But I told you, don't worry. When you come in, when you come in, you will feel so relaxed. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing this with me. And I just wish you the very best as you continue to forge ahead in your career, and of course, lending your voice, like I said earlier, to issues that affect us all. And on this note, this is where I draw the curtains of the show. Remember that you can catch me live on Inspiration FM at 5 p.m. tomorrow, 92.3, to continue the conversation on issues that affect us. My name remains Kikelo Matandao. I'm bye now.